Hey, this is Top from Top Spot 123, and you're watching the man with the best pop culture memory on YouTube, the old ass retro gamer. Take it away, Chris.
Hey everybody, Chris, the old ass retro gamer here. Welcome to my newest video game collection 2022 live stream. Today we're talking all about, well, not all, but about some of the games in my Super Nintendo collection, including the Super Famicom games that I currently own. One up, woman. First, thumbs up. Well, welcome. What's up, Mondane? Hell yeah, Top Spot. That's my bro. Yeah, can't talk. Today was a rough day at work. I am really tired, but what else is new? First third of my Super Nintendo collection and all of my Super Famicom games. I only have 12 Super Famicom games. I should probably look into getting some more, but technically my repros are of Super Famicom games, so those could count. Right? Anyway, like I say in every one of these streams, I don't do these to brag about what's in my collection and that kind of stuff. I do it, one, for new content for the channel, since I'm not doing a lot of edited content other than the shorts. This keeps it alive. I do it, number two, to talk to people like Mondane and everybody that shows up during these streams. It's awesome. Get to talk to other like-minded people, and that's great. Number three, it's good to have a visual record of everything in my collection just in case something happens. You know, not going to say what. Don't want to curse myself. And number four, it's fun. So let's get going on the Super Nintendo. So when it comes to this console, I was a huge Nintendo fanboy. I told you guys during the NES streams how we begged and begged for my parents, our parents, my brothers and my parents, to get us an NES. They refused for years. Finally, they did, and I think this was 1988 when they finally did cave and get us one. And a few years later, the word came out that Nintendo was releasing a new console, the Super Nintendo, and I absolutely had to have one. Parents, once again, no, you have a Nintendo. Your brother just got a Genesis. You've both got Game Boys. What do you need another console for? Because reasons. So what does any 16-year-old do during a time of crisis like this, personal crisis? You go and get a job. So I went and got a job at the local Kmart just so I could get my own Super Nintendo. Parents made it pretty clear they weren't going to get me one, for me. Or weren't going to get me one. Like I said, I can't talk tonight. Jesus. I went and got a job at the local Kmart. Hated it. That was one of the worst jobs with some of the worst people I've ever worked with in my life. Every single manager, except for one, was a complete tool. Haven't talked to the good one in a while. I probably should look him up on Facebook and see what's up. But yeah, I was miserable. What's going on? The hell was that? Something's going on with my internet. It's saying my Wi-Fi connection is weak, but I'm not hooked up through Wi-Fi. I'm hooked up through LAN cable. Or never mind. Yeah, hated that job, but wanted that Super Nintendo, and then I ended up putting it on layaway. I paid it off in about 5 or 6 weeks, I want to say. Got it, and then every paycheck after that, I would use some of my paycheck money to buy a new game. And it would alternate between maybe a Game Boy game, a Super Nintendo game, a Nintendo game, but I was always buying a new game pretty much every week. And I built up a pretty decent collection, and then I discovered Funkoland, and that just added to the fire. I was trading stuff I didn't like, getting stuff from them all the time. It was really, really cool. What the hell is going on here? My internet keeps blinking out. Can you guys still hear me? Am I still streaming? Because I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know. But it ended up becoming my favorite console of all time, mostly because it was the first one that I ever bought with my own money. So like I said, I got a gigantic collection back then. I'm good. Thank you. And I still play it to this day. I play it the most out of all the consoles that I can play on my Retro Freak that I have hooked up to my TV in my living room. I play the Super Nintendo games the most. The music capabilities, the graphic capabilities, like just the games that they had, like the franchises, like not only the ones from Nintendo, but you had like some other great ones. Okay, cool. Thanks, dude. And like I just kept on discovering new things. I would like get an itching to get a new game. I hadn't bought a new game in a long time. I've played all the other ones that I have, to death. I need something new. And then I go to the store, usually was the local mall if I wasn't getting anything at Kmart, because Kmart like would only get the major things. Every once in a while, something like you have the AAA titles and then like the AA titles and then the single A titles, like the kind of, we would get a single A every once in a while, but most of the time it was just the AAAs. So if I wanted to get something outside of that, I had to go to like the local mall, and I would go to that KB where I was buying all my discounted NES games, or there also was a Software Etc. in that mall, and I would usually get stuff there. And that's where I discovered a whole bunch of the games that I probably would never have found just working at Kmart, with the stuff that they would get in for sale. So I have great memories of playing this console, and I kept it long into my, like when I got the PlayStation, why do you keep blinking on me? I don't understand what's going on. Like long after I had the PlayStation and the Saturn, and I do believe the Nintendo 64, I think I got rid of my Super Nintendo like just after I got my Nintendo 64. I was like, I've got 3 brand new consoles here. I don't need this older one. Although eventually at the end of the 90s, I want to say around 98, late 98, early 99, I got the itching for it again, went out and got one, or bought another Super Nintendo. I bought one of the Super Nintendo Juniors. I think that had come out like maybe a year before. It was like about half the size of a standard Super Nintendo. I ended up buying one of those really cheap somewhere. I can't even remember where I got it. Maybe Venture. And then I went from video store to video store to video store. Not video game store, video store, like a rental shop. And was buying all of the games that they had for the Super Nintendo. What is going on here? It just blinked out on me again. Hang on one second, everybody. I'm going to go and check my internet and see what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Whenever I turned the Wi-Fi on my Mac and it got stable, I have the cable plugged in now to the Mac, and I turn my Wi-Fi off, and it says that it's unstable. I don't know, but you're saying it's false positives, so or false negatives. So yeah, okay, whatever. Let's keep going. So yeah, I was going from video store to video store, just buying whatever games that I thought were interesting or ones that I had when I originally had the Super Nintendo. And I was getting them dirt cheap. I remember the hardest one it was to find was Alien 3 on the Super Nintendo. I mean, I had to go to like 20 different video stores to find a copy of that because none of the actual stores carried Super Nintendo games anymore. The only place I could really find them were Funko Lands, Software, etc. I think had used games and stuff like that. And they were trying to peter those out, but the video stores were the way to go at that point in time. And I got a massive collection which I kept throughout the entire 2000s. I had this whole giant collection of all these other consoles too. And when I lost my job in 2011, I had to sell everything just to keep the lights on. So I ended up, when in 2013 got back into collecting, first console I bought stuff for was the Super Nintendo. I had to get 2 games back into my collection. I bought a Super Nintendo Junior again. The guy that I bought it from off of eBay tried to jip me. He sent me a console that had the controller that it came with. The cables for the controllers were pretty decently long. The one that I got was about half the length, and when I really inspected it, I could see that the cable had been cut and resoldered back together, and the plastic that covers the cable had been melted. Really, the guy was trying to make it look like there was nothing wrong. He melted the plastic so it looked normal, but the controller refused to work. So I sent it back to the guy, got my money back from eBay, and the guy ripped me a new one, said that I was trying to jip him, that I was giving him a broken Super Nintendo that I had bought, and I kept his good one and gave him a shitty one in return. No, dude, fess up to it. I bought a shitty controller from you, a shitty console. I want my money back. And then a week later, I got another one, and that worked perfectly fine. And that's the one I still own to this day. And yeah, I try to find Super Nintendo games as often as I possibly can. I absolutely love this console, and that has moved over toward the Super Famicom, which I didn't really have access to those games back in the day. There was really no import stores that I can remember that had this kind of stuff. I was only the localized US stuff. So having the Retro Freak, which plays the Super Famicom games on top of the Super Nintendo games, is fantastic. Gets me more options, don't have to emulate kind of thing. So let's get into these Super Famicom games. I'm probably going to butcher some of these names. I should probably go and get my phone that has the full names of these. We'll start off with Bahamut Lagoon. I probably should have bought a repro of this because it is an RPG from Squaresoft that we did not get over here. Obviously, lots of text, so it's going to be difficult. But there is a translation patch out there. Thankfully, my Retro Freak uses translation patches for games like this, so that is great. But it looks fantastic. I love the way the game looks. So I need to set time aside to play these RPGs I keep on buying. But I got this for $20 at Half Price Books of all places, complete in the box. And I think that was there's 2 games here that I got at the same time for $20 each. That it's I don't either they didn't know what they had or they didn't know what to do with them at the store, so they just put them up for $20 because these were going for a hell of a lot more elsewhere. So Bahamut Lagoon. Next up, we have these have subtitles. I should probably go and get my phone real quick. I will be right back. I won't put the coming soon thing on. Okay, so where the fuck is my phone? Right over here. I am a dumbass. Running around looking for my phone. Yep. And this was like right before COVID, I think, when I got that and this other one I'm going to talk about. So I'm running around the living room looking for my phone. It's right over here next to me. Why is Peter calling me? Peter, you creeping on me? Let's see. Super Famicom. Never mind, you found it. Oh, Peter was trying to be helpful. Thank you, Peter. Okay, here we go. So next up is Hokuto no Ken 5 Tenma Ryusei Den I Zesho. Or Zesho, I don't know. I'm butchering it. I bet I need CIB game for $20. Yeah. I've talked about it before in other streams, the Nintendo and the Game Boy and the Genesis, that I'm trying to get all of the Fist of the North Star / Hokuto no Ken games in my collection, and it just blacked out on me again. Can you guys still see me? I don't understand what's going on here. So I made a real effort to get these Super Nintendo or Super Famicom ones because these are strange games indeed, because this is a full-on RPG of Fist of the North Star. That is absolutely crazy. Yeah, I don't know what's going on my end. It keeps blinking out on me. So yeah, I haven't played this yet because I need a translation patch. It is out there. I just haven't bothered trying to get it. I need to play through all the other games in the series first. Yeah, I don't know. It keeps on telling me that my internet is unstable, and then it blacks out. Whatever. I'm not going to pay attention to it anymore. So I had to get that, and I got these for I think I've brought them up before. I think it was the the Famicom Disk System games that I was talking about in one stream. There was a guy that I found on eBay from Japan who was always selling like the Japanese games, and he would sell them super cheap. Shipping, which would, I swear, with this guy, shipping would take 5 days from Japan, and it was only $5, no matter what it was, no matter how many things you bought. It was always $5. I don't know how he did it, but he did. And I was always buying stuff from him, and I always find stuff for great prices. Like, he always has exactly what I'm looking for when I'm looking for it. And it was always for a really good price. So I got most of these, I think, from him, except for this one. This one I got at the Midwest Gaming Classic, I think, in 2016. I think it was the second year that I went. That is Fist of the North Star 6. Gekito Denshoken How Hinomichi. I don't know what this means. So that one was an RPG because the last two God, I can't talk tonight. The last two games that came out for the Famicom, Part 3 and Part 4, were RPGs, and that carried over to Part 5, but Part 6 decided to change it up. The first two games in the series were beat-em-ups, like platforming beat-em-ups. The next three were RPGs, and then for Part 6, they decided to go one-on-one fighting game, because it kind of makes sense for Fist of the North Star. It's all about martial arts, schools fighting up against each other. The only thing is when you punch somebody in these games, in these movies, in these mangas, people's heads explode when you punch them. Like, you punch them in the stomach and their head pops. You punch them in, like, the side, or you stick two fingers in their side and then their intestines shoot out their butthole. You know, kind of stuff. It is absolutely nuts. But it has all the characters from the manga that I was reading at the time that this actually did come out in Japan in it, which is kind of awesome. Only problem is the game is a little slow. It's kind of like playing the original Street Fighter. It just kind of chugs along a little bit. But then we've got Hokuto no Ken 7, Saiken Resuden Denshosha Hinomichi. I don't know what any of this means. And once again, it is a one-on-one fighting game. It blacked out on me again. I can't tell if you can see what I'm seeing. But, yeah, you can tell it looks a little bit better than the last one, and this one does move a hell of a lot faster. So this one is kind of like the original Street Fighter 2 on the Super Nintendo, speed-wise, and then this one is Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. they're both. I mean, the sixth one is okay. It's hard because it's slow, but the seventh one is the one to go for if you are looking for a fighting game from Japan that we didn't get over here. Doesn't require you to know the language. That one is just easy to pick up and play. It's really cool. Next up, we have a game that I was talking about in my import Super Famicom game short that I released a couple of weeks ago. And this one is Kaite Sukute Asobaru Dezemon. And I was watching Moonbeam Arcade on Twitch. Amber and I can't remember the name of her husband, Jeff or something. It's Amber and I can't remember the dude's name really. They on the weekends they like stream together. Normally during the week they stream separately, but on the weekends I think it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday they always stream together and they pick a console. They have like an EverDrive for every console there is, even the old 8-bit computers and stuff like that. And they just play games specifically. I had this upside down. They play games specifically for that console like the entire weekend. And they were doing Super Famicom games, and some guy requested this game, and they played it, and it was like, they're like, hey, this is actually really cool. It's a vertically scrolling shmup, and it's actually really, really good. The music and the gameplay and the power-ups and even like the bosses are really, really cool. But what they didn't know when they booted this up was that there is a make-your-own shmup mode. You can make the pixels, you can make the enemies, you can make the music, you can create the patterns, everything. It is absolutely nuts. Sadly, I don't think there is a translation patch for this, so making them or to know what I need to do to make the game work right is kind of hard at the moment, but I can probably just like use my phone for that. You have that translation thing where you like film something with your phone with the camera and it'll instantly translate it on your screen. See if that works. Maybe I can get it to work that way. But I love Mario Paint. I love games like that where I get to create things of my own. So when I saw that, I immediately, like, as I was watching them stream this, I went on eBay and got a copy of this. And it is super rad. The shmup that's built into the game itself is awesome. So, I mean, even if you can't, if there's no, like, if you don't know the language and it's hard to figure out what you're supposed to be doing for the create your own shmup segment, it doesn't matter because you have a fully developed shmup already in there and it's pretty great. This one is Mario Senki Madara 2. I picked this up not too long ago, coming home from the Mogane Con with Captain Algebra. We had pulled off the highway on the way back from the convention to get something to eat, and I think Cap just happened to look on his phone to see if there were any game stores in the area in the vicinity of the Burger King that we were sitting at. It was a Burger King or a Wendy's? I think it was a Wendy's. And it turns out there was one like right down the street, like a good 2 minutes down the street. And we went there just to check things out, and I found a bunch of really cool stuff. And this I got for, I think, $10 or $15. And I have the original Madara game on the Famicom. It's one of Konami's like bigger cartridges. So it's got a lot of extra chips in there. I don't know if it's for music or storage or whatever, but a sequel, sure, why not? And it is an RPG, which means I need a translation patch. So I wasn't going to pass that up for the price. I think this was $10. For the price, I was not going to pass it up. Even though I haven't played through the first one, but, OCD. I talked about this one. You love that Command and Conquer had a map editor mode. I can't imagine how it would be to make a shmup. Yeah, I know, right? You want to make your own shmup? Get that game. I talked about this one in that short about the Super Famicom games also, and that is Psycho Dream. I actually got told about this by Nintendo. He did a video about this. He had picked up a cartridge somewhere, and at the time, this was actually really, really cheap. I want to say I got this for like $25 off of eBay, which is really good. And I think he even did a review of it on his channel. And I was like, that looks really rad. It looks like a Valis game. And I really like Valis. So I ran out and picked it up. And yeah, it's actually pretty cool. You get to play as two different characters. It's like a male and a female. And it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up type of game. And it's really rad. The music is fantastic. And there's a lot of really great effects in it too. Like, because you're supposed to be like in some sort of a dream state, there's always like some sort of a layer over the screen, like some sort of transparent layer of something just like waving. Like, it's really, really cool the way they do it. Kind of like the way they have the bubbles going over the title, Psycho Dream. It's kind of like that kind of thing happening. It's really neat the way they worked it. Next up we have, I think this is the one that I found. Yeah, when I found Bahamut Lagoon for $20 at Half Price Books, Valis 3 on the TurboGrafx CD was so good. Super Valis. I love Valis. I love Valis. Except Valis 2 on the Turbo CD. It is terrible. Valis 3, yes. Valis 3 is good. I found this one there as well, and that is Ranma 1/2 Chunai Gekidohen. And I love Ranma 1/2. It was one of the first animes I got into. My friend Charlie, he's in the chat sometimes as Epic Die Studio. We both got into this at the same time. We both got into anime at the exact same time. We liked the same kind of anime. He discovered Ranma 1/2 and then showed it to me, and then I got heavily into it. But then, like, you start watching season after season of this, and it's just the same shit over and over again. So I kind of got burnt out on it. But Ranma's about a boy who had an arranged marriage to his father's friend's daughter when they were kids. He's never met the girl in his life. So on the way to hook up for this wedding, this arranged marriage, Ranma and his dad, who are martial artists, decide to go to this cursed springs to train. And there's all these little pools of water with a bamboo pole sticking out of it, and you're supposed to jump from pole to pole and try to knock people off. The only thing is, this cursed spring, each one of these pools of water, something or someone had died in that pool, and their spirit is in there. And if you land in that pool, you take on that creature's appearance when you get hit with cold water. It's weird. So Ranma gets knocked off a pole, falls into a pool where a young girl died. So when he gets hit with cold water, he turns into a girl of the same age as him, but just, a female. His dad fell into one where a panda had drowned. So when he gets hit with cold water, turns into a big, gigantic panda that does martial arts. Turns out everyone in this town where Ranma's, bride-to-be lives has fallen in there too. So there's people that turn into cats, pigs, a duck. It's just weird. But everybody's also a martial artist in that town. And there's Ranma on the bottom. That's his male version. Then the top version is the female form. So since the show is all about martial artists, naturally you have a fighting game, a one-on-one fighting game. We did get one of these in the US, and I don't think it's this one. I do believe... Is it this one? There's 3 Ranma games on the Super Famicom. There's 2 that are fighting games and 1 that is an RPG. This is one of the fighting games. I think it might be this one that got translated to the US as Ranma 1/2 Hard Battle. You can kind of see it. It's super slow and really hard. And then I picked this one up. Actually, so when I was selling all of my games in 2013, one of them, a bunch of them didn't sell. A bunch of them I refused to sell because I knew that they were expensive and they were some of my personal favorites, so I refused to put them up for sale. And then there were some that didn't sell. And this one didn't sell, and I'm glad that it didn't because it's the other Ranma 1/2 fighting game. And this one is Ranma 1/2 Choge Ranbuhen. And this one is the better of the two. This one is faster, more characters, more special moves. The music is a lot better. The play control is better. So, yay. I'm glad I kept that one, or that one didn't sell. I should say hello since we're in this together. Next up, we have... I got this at the Midwest Gaming Classic, I think, in 2018. It was the first one where it was in the convention center. And that is Super Fire Pro Wrestling. John Riggs is always talking about this franchise. I have one for the Dreamcast. I have one for the PlayStation 2, one for the PlayStation 4. And I remember at the end of the convention, I still had money that I had set aside left, as it was like an hour before the convention was going to shut down. And I was just looking for ways to spend it. And I ended up going to this table at the very front of the convention center, or the dealer hall. I went to this one table that was nothing but anime. And so I cannot talk tonight. It was nothing but import games. And this was the only one that really caught my eye. I knew what this was because I already had this, I think, the PlayStation 2 game. So I was like, oh, shit. Like, is this where it started? No, it actually started on the NES. But it is a very tactical, technical wrestling game. It's in an isometric view. And it's all about grappling and doing like perfect timing, button presses and stuff like that. It's not like a WWF game where it's all about action. This one's about grappling and timing and all this kind of stuff. And it's actually really interesting for a wrestling game. It's a different, like, it has a different speed, different feel. It's really cool. I got this one because of Happy Beard Games. And that is Tenchi Muyo Gamehen or Gamehen. I don't know what it is. Another anime that I used to watch back in the 90s. It's very Ranma-esque. It's except instead of having a bunch of like martial arts women surrounding Ranma all the time, it's this one kid who has attracted all these alien women, and they all want him for some reason. It's been a long time since I've watched it. I don't remember the reason why. And this one is an RPG. And Kevin from Happy Beer Games was talking about it in one of his videos. And I was like, I love Tenchi Muyo. I didn't realize that it was old enough to get a game on the Super Famicom. So I ran out and got a copy. And I got this dirt cheap. It was like $20, $25 on eBay. And according to him, it's like really, really short. You don't really need to know Japanese to play it. He beat it like really, I think he said it took him like 8 hours or 10 hours or something like that. And he doesn't know Japanese, and he was able to play through it without, knowing what the language was. So yeah, I picked it up because love the license. You know me, license whore. And then I got this last one because of Happy Console Gamer, Johnny Millennium. He was talking about wanting this game back when it had first come out. He read about it in some Japanese video game magazine. He thought it looked great, being that he was into like drawing and art and animation and stuff like that. And this game was very well animated, apparently. And he couldn't get it until like modern day. Like 20 years had gone by before he could actually get his hands on a copy of it. And that is Wonder Project J, Machine Boy Pino. And it's kind of like I talked about this in the short also about the Super Famicom. It is a point and click adventure game where you have this like Pinocchio style kid who's like a robot who's just trying to like get through the day, and you point him in the right direction and tell him to pick up things, interact with things. And it's just really interesting, and it's really good, and the animation is absolutely phenomenal. It is so cool. I remember watching like the video feed or the video footage that Johnny Millennium had captured, and it was showing in his video. And I was like, wow, like this doesn't look like it comes on a cartridge. This looks way in advance of what a cartridge, like animation on a cartridge game would look like. It's fantastic. And it's actually really fun too. Although you probably would need a translation patch for this also. That is a winner right there. So that's it for my Super Famicom games. Now we're going to get into the Super Nintendo games. And like I said, I've split this up into 3 different videos because I have a lot of Super Nintendo games to talk about. So we'll start off with the numbers. We got the 7th Saga. I've watched Hungry Goriah stream this. I have watched Nintendo stream this on Twitch. It is an RPG. It has a lot of really cool effects. Like when you're on the overworld, it's like in third person, and the whole world around you is in like mode 7. It's really crazy. And both people have said that this is a very grindy RPG. I have not put a lot of time into it. I picked this up also at my old local retro shop back in probably 2014 for dirt cheap. I think I got this for like $30, $35 or something like that. And I played it just to make sure it worked, and I haven't popped it in since because RPG. And I need to start playing some of these damn RPGs that I've been buying. What's up, Chris James? How's it going? The Mortal Kombat piece. I need a translation patch for everything. I know, right? Even some of the American games. Next up, we have my favorite video game of all time. If you've watched this channel, past or present, you got to know my favorite game of all time. That is the ActRaiser. I absolutely love this game. One of the reasons I wanted to get a Super Nintendo so badly back in 1991 was because I had read a little articles, a little blurb in Nintendo Power, and it was like talking about games that were in Japan, that had been released in Japan, that were scheduled to come out over here. And at the bottom of this 2-page spread about all these Japanese games that were going to get translated and sent over here for us was this little thing about ActRaiser. And basically it was like, yeah, it's an action game. There's some world building, and I didn't realize what they meant by world building in that blurb. But the music in it is like listening to a live orchestra playing in front of you kind of thing. And me being huge into classical music and film scores and video game music too, that immediately was like this little thing went off in my head. I was like, bing, need that game immediately. So the day that this came out, I begged my mom. I didn't have a car yet. I begged my mom, please take me to the mall so I can pick up a copy of that game. And we did. And holy crap, I have played this game I want to say the entire time I had my Super Nintendo back in the day. I played through it at least twice a year. And then when I got the Super Nintendo again in like 98, 99, I got a copy of this and part 2. And I would play, on a regular basis then also. And nowadays, once I got it back in my collection, I play through it at least once a year. I've streamed it. I've streamed the remake of this also. So what is it? It is 2 types of games in one. It is partially a side-scrolling beat-em-up with fantastic music. The animation could be a little bit better, but the graphics are really colorful and everything. And then the other half of the game is a city building sim, kind of like Sim City, because the character you're playing as in this game is a god, and the god has been away for a while because he got his ass whooped by this villain named Tanzra, and now he's like built his strength back up, and he's like, nope, time to go and get rid of that guy once and for all. And in the meantime, Tanzra has just wrecked shit, and you have to fix it. So all the people are like hiding, and you need to like get them to come out of the town hall in each of the areas that you go to, and rebuild the world, help them close the monster lairs that they're hiding from, help them grow crops and stuff like that, and learn how to build bridges and how to fish and stuff like that. It is really fun. Both game types are super fun, but I find myself enjoying the city building stuff more than the side-scrolling beat-em-up stuff. So it is absolutely fantastic. The mix of the two genres just really does it for me. Just as I'm like getting sick of the world building part, that part is over, and all of a sudden you're playing the side scrolling thing, and I'm like, oh great, this is exactly what I need to refresh and start to like this game again, because I start to get tired of it. And then once I beat that section, I'm like, you know what, I can really go for doing the world building part again. And it's like it's so well paced. I can play this any day of the week, and I usually will play through it at any old time. Holy crap! Thank you very much, Chris James. Thank you. Yeah, ActRaiser, my all-time favorite game. The sequel, on the other hand, not so much. The sequel to this game is one of the worst pieces of crap. They not only took out all of the world-building stuff, which was my favorite part of the game, they also turned the beat-em-up, or the hack-and-slash parts of it. They gave your character wings, and now you have this like flying aspect, and it's broken. Like, all you have to do is just keep on spamming this like dive bomb attack, and you can beat anything. And there's no challenge to it. It sucks. It sucks hard. Oh shit, and Waves and Games signed up. Woo! Thank you, everybody. Thank you. You are awesome. Next up, we have Addams Family Values, another game that I got told about by Nintendo. He did a video on my channel. We did like a collab. Yeah, do not play the sequel. The music is cool. Don't get me wrong. Yuzo Koshiro, who composed the music for ActRaiser, he composed new stuff for the sequel, but the game itself is like gaming diarrhea. It is horrible. Sub-Zero! Now Plane Zero! Yeah. I did a video games based on movies collaboration with Nintendo. We're talking about like good video games based on movies, and this was one of Nintendo's picks. And I always avoided it because I was not a fan of the original Addams Family game that came out based on the first film. But this one, based on the second film, is more like playing Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. You play as Fester, and it's like a top-down adventure game. And it's really, really fun. And the video capture that he sent me I was like watching, I was like, wow, I actually really am enjoying what I'm seeing here. And eventually I picked up a copy of my own, and sure enough, it's actually really cool. I don't know when you stop being an asshat, dude. I noticed like you and there's someone else that had signed up to be. There's like, I had two, I think it was, I cannot remember. I remember I had two people. It might have been Nintendo. I think it was you and Nintendo, and then all of a sudden, like, you weren't anymore. It was weird. I'm probably going to get rid of this because I have better versions of this available on other consoles in my collection. But it's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons: Eye of the Beholder. This is a FCI game, but for some reason Capcom released it. But it is a dungeon crawler. It's based on an old computer game. It's a dungeon crawler where you're going like into the screen, and you have like your stats for all of your characters, and you fight things that you find in the dungeons. It's a really cool game, but I have the better version of this for the Sega CD. Spoiler alert. And I got this from my buddy Felix the Brett from Bad or Rad Nerdatorium on Facebook. And I'm not sad that I have it, but like I said, I have better versions of this game on another console, so I don't know if I'm going to keep this. I might just set it aside and get rid of it. We'll see. Yeah, I'm going to set it aside just because. Another recent pickup. I bought this while I was doing all of those. Every day I released a video in January, the licensed video game challenge that I did. And I bought a bunch of licensed games while I was like making those episodes because I thought I would end up talking about them in the videos themselves, and I just didn't. But I'm glad that I ended up getting these into my collection anyway, and one of them was Aladdin. I have had the Genesis game since I got back into collecting in 2013, but this one has eluded me. It eluded me for a long time. And the thing is, I actually prefer this version to the Genesis one. Sure, the Genesis one has the better animation and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Disney did it themselves. I mean, what do you expect? But I like the gameplay in this one more. I think that Aladdin on the Genesis moves a little too fast. It feels a little Sonic-y to me, like it has that blast processing thing going on. This one just feels paced better, and I like the mechanics of it more, and I like the graphics, I think, are more colorful. The music sounds better and closer to what was in the film and that kind of stuff. But don't get me wrong, the Genesis one is a great game too, but I just like this one a little better. You can kind of see it on the back, how colorful it is. It's fantastic. And I got this like dirt cheap. During COVID, I can't talk. It's weird. Maybe my superpower of finding people slipping on eBay is still in full effect. I don't know. But like, COVID prices have gone through the roof. And like video games are like super expensive now ever since COVID hit. But like whenever I go looking for something specific, I end up finding it for like way less than it normally would go for, and I end up snapping it up. It happened with both of the games that I bought. Or was it 3 games that I bought during January when I was making those videos. That was one of them. The other one, I think you might see this episode. Yeah, you might. Next up is that game I was talking about that I was trying to desperately find at those video stores when I had bought a Super Nintendo again in the late 90s, and it took me like going to 20 different video stores to find a copy of this in the box. And that is Alien 3. And this one, yes, is by LJN. Yay. Yeah, it's DKC Box and Strategy Guide. There was a couple at the convention, wasn't there? I know there was another person selling it at Mo Game Con. So there is the Genesis game, which I love. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite Genesis games. And most of the games that came out for the other consoles are ports of that Genesis game. The Nintendo is a port of the Genesis. The Game Gear is a port of the Genesis. The Master System is a port of the Genesis game. Only thing is, the Super Nintendo and the Game Boy got the different Alien 3 games that aren't based on that one at all. I talked about the Game Boy one already. That's like a top-down Legend of Zelda style adventure game set in that prison. This one is a side-scrolling action game also, like the Genesis game, but this one is completely different from that one. It has nothing in common with it at all other than the fact that it is side-scrolling. This one is you play as Ripley again, but you have missions to do instead of just rescuing all of the Cocoon prisoners and then taking out a boss. This one has like these hubs, these computer hubs that you need to go to in each section of levels. And there's a list of missions. Like one is go to this area and seal a broken conduit. Like you have to weld something shut. The only thing is you got to go through all these areas that are infested with aliens and to get there. Oh, another one might be like go into this area over here and destroy all the alien eggs that have that we found. Go over here and take out this other alien because he's blocking the path for the prisoners to go and do what they need to do, kind of thing. And the whole game is like that. It is really, really cool the way it's set up. Yeah, but they weren't slipping. They knew the prices. Yeah. The animation in this game is fantastic. The graphics are really dark yet colorful. If that makes any kind of sense. It's like the way everyone says 4K is really dark, but it makes the colors pop. It's kind of like that. And the music in this is moody as hell. The Genesis game has awesome music too, but it's very upbeat and like it's trying to get you to like it's an action game. You got to get all amped up and shit. This one, the music is like super moody and dark, and it fits the way the game is set up perfectly. I absolutely love this game. It is fantastic. I might play some of this tonight after the stream is over. I'm getting all hyped on it. Every shade of gray green. Yeah, basically. But it is a fantastic game. It gets no love. Good contrasting color palette. Nice description. Next up, we have another Alien game, and that is Alien versus Predator. I thought back in the day when I bought this, it was a port of the arcade game. There was an Alien versus Predator arcade game, and I loved it. And I thought that this was it. Turns out it's not. It's its own thing. It is still a beat 'em up, but it is not a port of that arcade game at all. And it's pretty cool. The only problem with this is you play as a Predator. I'll just say that. You play as a Predator, and you're beating the shit out of aliens left and right, all different kinds of aliens, mostly from the cartoon. Like there's bull aliens and all that kind of shit. The only thing is the game can be kind of unfair. You get ganged up on so easily in this, and you just get spammed and juggled and all this kind of crap, and it's borderline unfair. I remember when I first got this game, this copy, I sat down and I was playing through, and I was doing pretty good. But the thing is, I got to like a certain point, I think it was like in stage 4, where like I could barely even move. I would take 3 steps, and then like 3 aliens would jump me and just juggle the shit out of me. I couldn't even stand up, and I just ran out of continues. And I was like, yeah, you know what? You're an emulation machine, absolutely. I need to get one of those Pandora stick things because I desperately want to play the Aliens arcade game again. That was fantastic. Even Alien 3, the light gun game, was awesome for the arcade. But it's a good game. It's just super hard. It makes me mad. It makes me so angry. Why? Why you anger me so much? Come on. Then we have Axelay, which is a very interesting shmup. Very interesting indeed. So it is part, if I do remember correctly, it is part vertical and part horizontal. Or is it all? No, I think it's all vertical. Okay. I've never been able to get very far in this game because it is hard as balls. But the thing about it is a vertically scrolling shmup. But the thing is, it's not like you're going straight up like in most of these types of games. You're actually going diagonally into the screen because you're usually fighting over a planet and like the horizon is like curving over and coming towards you. It is the coolest effect. It's one of the best uses of Mode 7. You can kind of see it in this picture. Jeez, it keeps blanking out on me. I don't know what the fuck is going on. You can see it kind of in this picture right here, how you can see there's like a horizon and things look a little bit curved. That's because it's like arcing over the horizon coming at you. It is so cool watching it in action. It's just a game that all these cool effects are in is hard as hell. Way cooler than Captain Skyhawk, much. It's just hard. It requires patience and practice, which is 2 things I don't have. Next up, we have another great license game, and that's Batman Returns. Captain Algebra just talked about this today in his $100 Super Nintendo challenge. I had this game back in the day, being a huge Batman fan and everything. I ran out and bought it day one, and it just blew my mind how much, like, it was like playing the movie. The music for every stage is directly out of the film. It is like a 16-bit version of the score. It is crazy. There's like stills from the movie, and they actually look really good. The graphics are fantastic. Batman is like a huge sprite. Every character in this is a huge sprite. And that's an awesome beat 'em up. The moves you can do, the cool things you can, if you're between 2 bad guys, you can smash their heads together. You can grab guys and just like slam them on the ground, like slam them down on their head. If there's a background with a window, you can walk up to the window while you're holding a character and throw them into the window. There's even the thing with the first boss. It's when Batman is taking out the clowns on the street, like from the beginning of the movie, and Selena Kyle has been taken hostage by one of the clowns, and he's standing right next to a wall. And in the movie, Batman shoots his little harpoon gun that he uses to like launch himself into the air, that he uses to climb. He launches it and shoots it into the wall behind the clown. The clown's like, "You missed," and Batman's like, and pulls it and rips a chunk of the wall out and hits the dude over the head. And Selena Kyle is free. Well, you can do that in the game when you get to the boss. There's a little window of time when you get to the first boss before he does anything where you can shoot that harpoon into the wall and then yank it back and pull a chunk of wall out and hit him in the back of the head. And it takes a chunk of health off of him. And then he'll fight proper. Otherwise, you can just go up and just start beating the crap out of the guy. It's really cool, the attention to detail in this game, and it is fantastic. I absolutely love it. And it also has some pretty rad driving scenes in it, too, that use a lot of Mode 7 require. What the? My brain and my mouth, they are not on the same frequency right now. My mouth. You lost mine with kids. You did not lose it. The kids still hadn't broken. Makes more sense. Another game I had back in the day, absolutely loved it, and it's a rare joint. Had to have Battletoads in Battle Maniacs. I was one of the only people in my little group of friends back in the day, my gamer friends, that absolutely loved Battletoads. Everyone else was like, "Fuck this game! This game is impossible. I hate it." I was like, "Yeah, it's hard. Every one of these games for the Nintendo is hard. Have you not noticed the pattern? Like, why are you not surprised that Battletoads was hard?" I loved it, so I ran out and got Battle Maniacs, like, I think first day. And it's more of the same. It's just better graphics, better music, more things happening, bigger characters. It's fantastic. I absolutely love it. There's nothing bad I can say about it, outside of it being hard as hell. But what do you expect? Too much blood in the caffeine system? So if you love the original Battletoads for the NES, this is like times 3. It's awesome. So I have a story about this one. So I'm a big fan of music. I love video game music. I love classical music, film scores. In the 90s, like the early 90s when I was in high school, what was the big thing that was going on? It was like house music, techno kind of stuff. And I wasn't really into like bands and 80s music at all. Like I listened to some stuff on the radio, but like I never was like, I need to get that new, Whitney Houston album kind of thing. I was never that kind of a person until the 90s. Like for some reason, like the bus that I would take to school every day, the bus driver would listen to this radio station that played nothing but house music. And like you're listening to it every single day. I eventually grew to like it. I wasn't big on it at first, but then like all of a sudden Technotronic sounds kind of cool. 2 Unlimited? Like Crystal Waters? Sure. Robin S? Yeah. It's like it grew on me and I eventually grew to love it. I still like it. So I find out that there's this game coming out from Activision that's going to have music by 2 Unlimited in it. And I was like, what? Hey now, what? Sure. Okay. Sold. What kind of game is it, by the way? It turns out it's a horizontally scrolling shmup. And it was when it was being taken over here or brought over here from Japan, Activision bought the rights to translate it and release it over here. And they were like, I can hear the pitch meeting. Oh, it's just another side scroll or horizontally scrolling shmup. What's going to differentiate it from all the other ones out there? Because let's be honest, this one isn't the greatest shmup out there. What are we going to do to make it, get people to pay attention to it? Why don't we make digital versions of music by 2 Unlimited and throw that in there instead of the music that the game originally came with? 2 Unlimited is a pretty popular band at this point in time. Sure, why not? So we're talking about Biometal, and you can see it right there. Super techno soundtrack from 2 Unlimited. And I ran out and bought it. Thing was, on the way back home, I got two speeding tickets. I was rushing home so I could play it, and a cop was following me and caught me speeding in 2 different zones and gave me 2 tickets at the same time. And my dad, when I went to court because of the tickets, my dad went with me because he was like pissed, and he bitched that cop out. And it turns out he wasn't supposed to do that. He's not allowed to give 2 tickets. You catch somebody speeding, you give them 1 ticket. You don't give them 2 at the same time. So that's probably one of the only times my dad did something like that for me. The game itself, like I said, is not the greatest. It's just like every other shmup out there. It's horizontally scrolling, and it's kind of like playing Phalanx almost. But the music makes it. And these like 16-bit chiptunes versions of like Twilight Zone and Ready for This and stuff, they sound pretty awesome. I could probably play some of it for you really quick if you want to hear it. Like I said, I found out that StreamYards does music now. I could probably upload it and play some of the music because I have the soundtrack. And there's another game that Activision did this exact same thing to that I will talk about probably in the last stream for my Super Nintendo games. You wanted banjo music on Phalanx? Well, because of that cover, when I get to that, I own that game, but when I get to that game, man, I was like, I saw that cover and I was like, there's no way in hell I'm playing that. I don't care what kind of game it is. That is the worst cover I've ever seen. Nowadays, I look at it and I just laugh and I'm like, that is the greatest cover I've ever seen. Let's see if I can upload some of this stuff real quick. Add music. Add music. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm doing this for you. Video game soundtracks, console games, Super Nintendo, Biometal. Do I not have the Biometal soundtrack? Shame on me. I thought I did. Hang on one second. I might have it under Super Famicom. No, I don't. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, everybody. I don't have it. I thought I did. I know I have the other one. Crap. I was excited about that too. Never mind. But yeah, it's like I said, it's not a great game, but it's worth it if you're a fan of like 90s electronic music. It's really cool that they did that they were able to license 2 Unlimited's like album and put the entire thing basically on there. It's kind of cool. Next up, I have Blackthorn, which is like playing Prince of Persia or Flashback. It's like a cinematic platformer like that. But the thing is, it's really dark, and this is one of the first games by Blizzard. It's pretty awesome. I had this back in the day, mostly because it just looked like metal as fuck. Metal AF. I was like, that looks rad. I need to have that. And I got a copy of it, like it was maybe a couple months after it came out, and I got it already discounted. And it was really cool. And I ended up talking a couple of my friends into buying a copy of it too, because I was always like, if you like Flashback, you're going to love this. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. The music is pretty low key, I guess. It's just mostly in the background just to like be there to have something to hear. But it's all about the gameplay in this, and it's pretty awesome. And if I remember correctly, it's based on a comic book. The art was by Image. Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was based on a comic book. Like Prince of Persia style, yes. Where you have to like stand underneath the platform and then press up to jump and you'll pull yourself up kind of thing. It's like that. There's puzzles, like environmental puzzles and stuff like that. It's very sci-fi. And the thing is, instead of having like a sword, you have a freaking shotgun. Blowing people away. It's pretty awesome. Next up is Brain Lord, another RPG. I got this at the exact same time I got Seventh Saga for the exact same price. Like back in 2014 when I was collecting, I was just finding stuff that nowadays is like ultra expensive, like for nothing, next to nothing. I remember going like, I've never played this before. Do I really want to pay $35 for this? I'm glad I did. And this is another one that I remember watching Hungry Goriah stream on Twitch. It's another RPG by Enix. And like I said, I played this when I first got it just to make sure it worked, but I haven't put any real time into it at all, so I really can't comment on it. It looks cool. So there's that. Eventually, I will, probably when I retire, when I have all that extra time on my hands, I will sit down and play through all these RPGs. Licensed game ahoy, people. And this one's actually pretty cool. So it is Bram Stoker's Dracula. So this is also available on the Genesis. The ports are exactly the same. The NES version and the Game Gear version are the same. And it's a platformer like Mario Brothers. It's weird. And then the Sega CD game is a beast all on its own. We'll talk about that when we get there. This one is another side-scrolling like beat 'em up. You play as Jonathan Harker, and you have this big-ass sword which has this big swoop that it gives you a lot of distance from the enemies, so you don't really take a lot of hits. But the music is pretty awesome. The graphics are really colorful. A lot of stuff in here is not from the movie. Like, what the hell's that dragon doing there? I don't know. Makes me think that this was a completely unrelated game that Sony ImageSoft had, or Psygnosis actually created this. And for some reason, Psygnosis' like little owl symbol is not on here, but this was a Psygnosis game. It's like an unrelated game that they were developing, and then all of a sudden Sony ImageSoft was like, "Hey, we bought the license, or we have the license for Dracula. Work it in there." And that's why there's all these weird bosses and stuff like that here that have nothing to do with the movie. Either that, or they were backed into a corner and they didn't know what they could do with the game, and like, oh, we'll just put a dragon in here as a boss. But it's really fun. I really like it. I had the Genesis one originally, and I got it in a lot somewhere. And I played it, and I was like, this is really cool. And then I ended up finding a cheap copy of the Super Nintendo one, and I started playing that one. I was like, that one is better than the Genesis one by far. The music is better, the play control is better, the graphics are way better, obviously. So I got rid of my Genesis one and I kept that one. Next up is a big heavy hitter, and I got this from what's his name? Shantendo64. He was selling a bunch of his stuff on Instagram. Normally I get repros from him. Every once in a while he sells stuff from his collection, and this was one of them, and I jumped on it before anyone else could. And that is the original Breath of Fire. I knew absolutely nothing about this game other than the fact that everybody loves it. And it is a tactical RPG, if I remember correctly. I played it a little bit just to make sure that it worked when it finally showed up. And it's really cool. And this has everything in it, like everything. And I paid less than, this was probably 2 years ago. I paid less than $100 for this. Yep, the game, the manual. There's like a poster in here that has like all the characters on it, like the enemies and stuff. There's another poster, which I think is a map. I remember when it showed up in the mail, I'm like, why is this package so heavy? It's just a Super Nintendo game. Oh, it's because it has all this paper product in here, which is awesome. Only thing that is not original in here is the cardboard insert for the cartridge. It's one of those reproduction, aftermarket ones, which is fine. I'm not a stickler for that kind of thing. As long as the game works and I have a manual and the box is in decent enough shape to hold together, I'm fine. We had BS Dracula because we can never understand how it worked. Which one was BS Dracula? RPG boxes always have so much stuff. Yeah, I know, right? Oh, no, Brandish, the Hellhole Zelda clone. I've always wanted to have Brandish, but I've never actually seen a copy of it in person. And I don't have Breath of Fire 2 either, so sad now. I'll get it eventually. Everyone tells me that Breath of Fire 2, which I think is a prequel to the original one, to that one, is a better game, but they're both great in their own right. So which one is the BS Dracula? It was the Super. If it was the Sega CD game, I don't blame you. Next up, we have Bubsy in Claws Encounters of the Furred Kind. Everyone and their mother was trying to create a new mascot for this generation, for the Genesis and the Super Nintendo and all that, and most of them failed. The only ones that really caught on were obviously Mario and Sonic. A couple of them here and there might have lasted for a little while. Bubsy was the one that was like the try-hard of them all. He was like everywhere. So we got 2 Bubsy games for these consoles, and Bubsy 3D, which, yeah, whatever that is. And then like nowadays, the Bubsy games are back, and there's like 2 of them available on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Bram Stoker. Oh, Bram Stoker Dracula. You never understand how it worked? Which version of it did you have? Did you have like the Genesis or the Nintendo? I love the Nintendo one. It's like playing, like I said, it's like playing Mario Brothers. It's weird. So this is another platformer, and because it came out in the 90s, the character had to have Tood. So Bubsy talks at great length the entire game to the point where like it gets annoying. But the game itself is not like terrible. It's just like it could have been a hell of a lot better. I like it, don't get me wrong. The second one, not so much, but this one, like I have kind of like a soft spot for. I played this one a lot, and I also had the Jaguar version of this back when I did have a Jaguar, which was okay. And this is a Chicago thing. I've talked about this a couple of times, obviously, because I did streams before. But yeah, I had to have this because Chicago. And that is Bulls versus the Blazers in the NBA playoffs. So I'm not a sports person, like, at all. Never have been. Played baseball a little bit when I was a kid. And when my parents said, like, you're going to play baseball until you're this one age, and once you hit that age, if you don't want to play anymore, just say so. And on my birthday, for that year, that I think it was age 9, when I hit age 9, I looked my parents directly in the eye. I'm like, get me off that baseball team. I hate it. But in Chicago, when the Bulls were like on that surge where they were just winning every championship, it was really hard not to get caught up in it. And like I ended up watching, I didn't watch like the season. I would watch like the playoff parts of it. And like I would really get into it. Like I don't know why. Like it just everyone in Chicago was into it. It was just a thing. It was like mass hysteria. I don't know. But for like whatever, how many weeks those playoffs were going on, I was loving every second of it. And I loved when the Bulls would win. It was fantastic. Like Chicago never won anything. So it's a standard basketball game. It just features mostly the Bulls and the Blazers from whatever year this came out. It's not a great game, but it's a decent basketball game. It's one of the only basketball games not called NBA Jam that I have in my collection and probably will ever own. That is not NBA Jam or NBA in the Zone on the PlayStation. I am slipping down my chair. Here's a repro that I got parts from it from 3 different places, or 2 different places? 2 different places. And that's Clock Tower. So I talked about this in one of my shorts. It was the Halloween games, like the spooky, scary games. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that this came out on the Super Famicom first, and the PlayStation game is actually a port of this to the PlayStation with PlayStation-style graphics. So I bought the cartridge from, was it Thunder Cards and Games? There was a guy on Facebook, I think his last name was Robbins. I can't remember what his first name was. Who he had his website called Thunder Cards and Games. He was selling like Pokemon cards and stuff, but he also had video games. And at one point, he started selling repros. And for Thanksgiving, for like Black Friday, he had like a sale, and I bought the cartridge of Clock Tower from him. The only thing was, I'm Mr. Complete in Box Collector. I need to have something to go along with that cart. You know, I need a box and maybe a manual. That would be great. Felix the Brett, who I've talked about before, had told me months earlier from when I bought that cart about this website called UncleTusk.com. It's not around anymore, but it was like the place you go if you are into repros and you want to have a complete copy of it. Like if you want a box, you could buy the box. If you want a manual, you could buy a manual. And he had stuff for every console that had repros developed for it. And I went there, and sure enough, they had a box, and you could buy a manual for Clock Tower also, and I made it a complete copy. And it's an adventure game, side-scrolling, horror game where you're in a mansion, you're playing as this young girl, and you're being stalked by a dude with a giant pair of scissors, and you have to run and hide. It's kind of like Outlast, a little bit, like before Outlast. And it's really creepy and well-made. It's just a little slow. But, you know, when you're talking about like a interactive horror type of movie game thing, you know, you have to expect it to be like that, you know. It's actually really cool and well-made. And it's been translated into English, which is fantastic. One of my all-time favorites, we got Contra 3, The Alien Wars. This was one of those times where I caught someone slipping hard on eBay. So I had just gone on vacation, and I had just gotten my tax return, I think. And I couldn't sleep. Like, it was like the first night of my vacation, and I was just laying in bed. My brain was racing, and I was all excited about being on vacation. Oh, hey, I played that game. So I was laying in bed. I grabbed my phone. I started surfing eBay and just looking for games. And I found a copy that some guy had just put up for sale like 10 minutes earlier and was selling it for like $40. And I was like, oh shit, this ain't gonna last. Click, buy it now. And yeah, this is one of the games I played the most back in the day when I originally had my Super Nintendo. I absolutely loved it, but I've never actually beaten it, which is strange. There comes a point where like I can never progress. I should probably try to do so. I think it is actually this level with the helicopter where you're hanging on that missile. I always end up dropping to my death way more than I should. Great side-scrolling run and gun. It is like a huge leap over what Super C was, and definitely a huge leap over what Contra Force was. But you have like these top-down levels that you would have like in Super C, but now they're mode 7, and you can turn the level and go in all these different directions. It is so cool the way it works. Contra 3 is a fantastic game. Great graphics, control, music. Oh my god, the music in this game is amazing. Oh, my favorite Contra game. And then we have Cool Spot. So I had this back in the day, back when I had originally had my Super Nintendo, and I had actually gone after work to go and buy a copy of Captain America and the Avengers on the Super Nintendo at the big mall. It's called Woodfield Mall. It's a gigantic mall. It's like the next biggest mall after the one in Minnesota. And there's a software etc. in there, and they had a policy that if you bought a game from them and you opened it and you played it and you didn't like it, you had like 5 or 6 days to bring it back and exchange it for something else. So I ran out and I bought this copy of Captain America and the Avengers, not realizing that it was made by Mindscape, that company that I hate for reasons. And I brought it home, and it is the worst port of that arcade game ever. It is so bad in every single way. And I played it for maybe 30 minutes, and I was like, nope, I am not keeping this. So I ran back to that mall. I basically went like, Mom, I'll be right back. I got to take the car. I drove over to that mall and brought it right back. And the guy was like, you were just here like an hour ago. And I was like, yeah, and I'm returning this game, and I want to switch it for something else. And this is what I switched it for, because there was nothing else in this store that interested me at that point in time. And I was really happy that I did. It's a platformer where you're playing as Spot, the 7-Up mascot, and you're just collecting little 7-Up icons. It's a collectathon. But it's actually pretty fun. It's kind of like got some puzzle elements too, where you have to like figure out how to get to this extra section to get these other icons and whatever. It's weird, but it's fun. I like it a lot. It's just one of those games I like when you just... It's like a decompression type of game. When you've played something that's really hard, you just pop that in real quick, play it for a half an hour, and you're like, yeah, okay, I feel okay now. I'm not going to talk about that one just yet. That one gets talked about a little bit later. Then we have Cybernator. I got this one really early in my collecting in 2013. I got this off of someone on Facebook who knew what they had. I don't think they cared. And the guy sold it to me. Like, he basically put up a listing in one of the groups I was in, and he didn't have prices. So he was like, PM me for a price. And I was like, so I'm just curious, what are you selling that Cybernator for? And I don't remember what it was, but it was dirt cheap. It was like $50 or something, if I remember correctly. And this is always going for way more than 100. And right now it's going for like a lot more than that. And I was like, oh, for $50, it was like 50 or 60 or something like that. And I was like, for compared to what that's going for on eBay, yeah, I will buy that right now. Like, here, what's your PayPal address? Send it to me now. I'm going to give you money. And it's a fantastic side-scrolling, I don't know if I'd consider run and gun, I guess, where you're playing as a robot and you're just taking on other robots and stuff. It's by Konami. They had their shit together back in these days. It is fantastic, and it is graphically a powerhouse. And the music's pretty cool, too. Everything about it is pretty rad. I like it a lot. I was really glad that I got it when I did, because I never would have found it for that price ever again. I think, Captain Algebra just talked about this today in his $100 Super Nintendo Challenge video, and that is Darius. He called it Darius or something, or I can't remember how he pronounced it. It's Darius. Darius Twin. This is a horizontally scrolling shmup. And there's really nothing too crazy about it. It's just like it's like Biometal. It's just nothing crazy. The only thing is that sets this one apart from all the others is everything that you're fighting is like a robotic fish of some kind or some sort of robotic sea life. It is the weirdest thing. I don't know what fetish this is playing out, whose kink this is, but every one of these games is like this. So Darius, that's how he said it, Darius, Doritos. I always called it Darius because there's people I know whose name is Darius. So I always called it Darius. I got diarrhea. I picked this up at not this year, but 2021's Midwest Gaming Classic, and that is Demolition Man. I've wanted this game for so long. Never played it back in the day. Always wanted to. But this is like one of the licensed games that even like the Blockbuster didn't have to rent. I don't know why. This one nobody gave a shit. I love the movie, so I wanted to play the game. And it's a side-scrolling run and gun where you're playing as Stallone's character and you're going after Simon Phoenix, Wesley Snipes. And now that I have played it, it is pretty awesome. I like it a lot. For a game by Acclaim or released by Acclaim, they actually have some winners mixed in there sometimes, people. So I really enjoyed this one. I was super happy to find it really cheaply at the Midwest Gaming Classic. And like when I saw it for the price, I think it was like $25 or $30. I was like, yeah, give it to me right now. So super thrilled to get it. The Genesis version is the exact same thing as this, and so is the Super Nintendo version. But the Sega CD version is the same, but it has CD quality music. Like I think it's actually the score from the movie, and it has cutscenes from the movie. But we'll talk about the 3DO one when I get there. If you saw my Stallone licensed game video from back in January for the licensed video game challenge, I talk about the 3DO game that is based on that movie, which is amazing. I know Mondane knows what's up. No rye like rye bread. Darius. Is that how we said? Darius? I got diarrhea. And if you were, there was a bunch of people, there was at least one person in this chat right now who was with me when I bought this at the Mo Game Con. This was the game I said, if I find this for a decent price, I'm buying it, because for some reason it dropped in price during COVID. I saw a copy of this for $2,500 at Midwest Gaming Classic, and I was like, no. But then at the 2022 Midwest Gaming Classic, Captain Algebra came up to me and was like, there's a guy selling that game that you're looking for like $300 in the corner, and it's complete. And I was like, oh shit, too bad I already spent all the money that I brought with me. Sorry. I missed out. Turns out there was someone selling it for almost the same price at Mo Game Con, and I jumped on it because that's why I brought all that money with me. I needed to spend that Facebook money that I got from that lawsuit thing on something, and this was it. And that is Demon's Crest. I was looking for this for years. I had been looking for it for years, and I wanted it to complete my subset of all of the Firebrand games. You got Gargoyles Quest 1, 2, and then this is the third game. I wanted it so bad, but it was always way too expensive. But like I said, get free money from Facebook. You got to spend it on something, and this is what I chose to spend it on, and I'm really happy that I did. So it is a side-scrolling action horror game where you're playing as Firebrand from Ghosts and Goblins. And the cool thing is you can eventually get different forms to change into that have different abilities to help you get through the stages. So you got it's a platformer and kind of a run and gun. Well, maybe not. Maybe a beat 'em up. I don't know. I just say platformer. But there's also these flying sections that use mode 7, kind of like when you're playing Final Fantasy 2 when you're using the skyship. It's pretty awesome the way it works. I've been looking for this forever. Finally got it. Yeah, Peter was there. It's fantastic. I need to sit down and just play it. I played it for a little while when I got back from the convention to make sure that it worked, and I was like, oh God, I'm so glad I own this now. This is so cool. Grabbed this one. I think this is the first game in the series. We have Desert Strike, Return to the Gulf, and there are a ton of games in the series, and I think I have all of them for various consoles. Desert Strike are these isometric helicopter combat games where you're doing all these weird missions. Sometimes you're rescuing hostages, sometimes you have to destroy a specific target, destroy some missile silos, whatever. This was, I think, the first one in the series, and it's I think the weakest one. It's still good, it's still fun, but it's the one that I play the least. But it's pretty rad nonetheless. Had more music. Yeah, that's the one. If there's one complaint, there's music during the cut scenes in between the stages. But when you're actually playing the game, all you hear is the blades, and that's it. It would be kind of cool if there was some music in the background to get you going. And then we've got Peter. Donkey Kong Country. Had to get these. Number one, they're fantastic games. Number two, the graphics are amazing for Super Nintendo. They got those Silicon Graphics CGI graphic thing going on, and it's by Rare. Had to have it. DKC! Absolutely fantastic game. This is the only one I've actually played through. Not through, but I played at great length. So there was a video, I think it was Peter that did the video where he was like, hey, which game has better music, Donkey Kong Country 1 or 2? And he had people sending responses. My response was, well, I've only played Donkey Kong Country 1, so that's Donkey Kong Country 1. Yeah. No option for me. But I played this one a lot back in the day. This came out when I was working at a video store in 95 or 6. And it was the Super Nintendo was kind of on the way out at that point in time. But this kind of definitely gave it another boost. The graphic capability, the graphic thing of it, the whole Silicon Graphics thing with the pre-rendered graphics and shit is really impressive to see, especially when you've been playing the PlayStation 1 and then you're like, how is the Super Nintendo doing this? And then Killer Instinct does the same thing. You're like, what? How? Okay, I'm here for it. The music is fantastic. The gameplay is fantastic. Awesome platformer. Like, David Wise's music is absolutely beautiful, especially that underwater level. God damn. So, yeah, there's that. But that's the only one I had played. It's the only one I actually owned. You get some real feels. They sound so good, yeah. And it's weird when you hear like the restrictions that they had for like space for the music on those cartridges, and the music that comes out of that chip is like your video. Everyone should go watch that video again. Yes, do it because I'm in it. No one gives a shit that I was in it. And then we have Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Kong Quest. I picked this one up for my buddy Felix the Brett. He randomly sometimes he's constantly sending me pictures of like lots of things he buys weekly. He finds so much crap out where he is. I don't know how he does it and how he has money to buy these like entire people's collections type of thing. But he has a store at a flea market where he sells games and stuff like that. So like if he gets stuff that he knows I'd be interested in, he'll usually say like, "Hey, I just got this stuff. You want anything from it?" And this was one of those times where he was like, "I got a bunch of stuff. Any of these things in this picture interest you?" I was like, I would definitely like that Donkey Kong Country 2. And it's more of the same. It's just now you're not playing as Donkey Kong. You're playing as Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong, I think her name is. But I think, what is it? Captain Algebra said that this game is his favorite of the three. I haven't really played it at that great of a length, so I can't really comment. I just played it to make sure it worked. And outside of that, yeah, it's cool. And then Peter was there when I got this one too. I got this at Mo Game Con, and that is Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. It's way better. It really is pretty similar. I mean, come on. It's just the only difference is your different characters. So the way these things work is like, it's like, okay, the first game you're playing as Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. And then it's like they get rid of the main character in the sequel and bring that secondary character to the forefront. And that was Diddy Kong in the second game, and Dixie is the secondary character. And then in this one, they get rid of Diddy Kong and bring Dixie to the forefront and created Baby Kong or whatever the hell his name is, the one, the dopey ones. Like, and it's more of the same also, but this one I've played the least because I just got it. And number two, I want to play through the other two games first. But yeah, more of the same. Had to get all three. Got to complete that subset. Got to complete those subsets, people. So it keeps you going. The camera zoomed in a little on part 3. Kiddy Kong, and he's trash. I know, right? I was watching somebody stream it. It might have been you or Captain Algebra, maybe. But I was watching. I was just like, why would anyone want to like keep Dixie alive just so you don't have to play as that other guy? Because he looked like crap. Those poopies. Spoopy poopy. Now we have a Double Dragon 5, The Shadow Falls. So at one point in collecting, I was like, "Ooh, I've got all this extra money I could be spending on games. Maybe I should spend them on something." Well, you know what? I haven't bought any of those Double Dragon games yet. The only one I really had at this point was Super Double Dragon. So I'm like, I don't have any of them on the NES. I don't have the 5th one. So I was like, well, just buy them all at once. So I bought Donkey Kong, Double Dragon 1, 2, 3, and 5 at the same time. And I remember this one getting all kinds of crap back in the day when it was first released. And I couldn't remember why. I remember I think it was an episode of Game Pro that was like, this game is shit. Like, what the hell happened? So I get the game in the mail, pop it in, and I'm like, oh, they completely got rid of the beat-em-up aspect, and now it's a one-on-one fighting game, and it's based on the cartoon, the Saturday morning cartoon. And it's not good. It controls like absolute shit. It is like this one of the slowest fighting games ever, and it sucks. So I don't know what possessed. I don't know who it was. I know Train West is just releasing these. Whoever developed it thought that it was a good idea to change up the formula because Super Double Dragon, which is Double Dragon 4, let's be honest, was a fantastic beat 'em up. I absolutely love that one. That one I play that all the time. I still play it all the time. Why would you want to change it after that? I don't know, but someone thought it was a good idea, so whatevs. Get that working design subset, working on it, working on the working designs. It'll happen. I have a few. 1, 2, 3. Another licensed game. I bought this one during the January licensed video game challenge. I was like, I need to have this in my collection because I had it for the Jaguar back in the day, and I don't have a Jaguar now, so this is the best way I can play it, and that is Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. I had this on the Jaguar, like I said, and it was okay. It's a weird mix between like a beat 'em up and a one-on-one fighting game. It's like some stages are beat 'em up and some stages are a one-on-one fight, and it's weird. But it's not bad. It's just like, of all the movies to license into a game, like Dragon the Bruce Lee stories, it was a drama. Yeah, it's about Bruce Lee, but it wasn't about him whooping people's asses. It's about the guy. Okay, whatevs. Makes me think, once again, we had like a fighting game kind of thing, and they just licensed the movie and then slapped Bruce Lee in it instead. But it's actually not terrible. It's not great. It's not good. It's not like great. It's not great. It's not terrible. I can't talk. Brain not working. Daddy needs some food. Daddy got to make some ramen after this. The super spicy kind that keeps Daddy up at night. You challenge Double Dragon 5 with Weapon Lord. I hear Weapon Lord is poopy. Next up we have, I think this was like a really early Super Nintendo game in the life of the console, and that is Draken. And it is an RPG, adventure RPG, but the thing is, like, the overworld is all Mode 7 stuff, and it's like polygons, not pixels, it's polygons. It's crazy. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And it looks really impressive, but the game itself is actually kind of slow. So I got this dirt cheap. I think I got this for like $10 back in like 2015. So Draken, yeah. Is it public goods ramen? No. I have a Korean grocery store, a gigantic Korean grocery store that I go to on the regular. And every time I go there, I make it a point to buy at least 2 new kinds of ramen that I've never had before. And I have bought some crazy stuff in my day. I bought one that was one serving for $10, and it turned out to be snail flavored. Turns out snails, when you cook them, smell like poop, like literal poop. My apartment smelled like poop for 2 days. It was horrible. It's horrible, and I love it. Yeah, I remember like John Riggs was talking about Draken in one video, and he was just like, yeah, it's really cheap. Go and buy a copy of it. You won't be disappointed. And I was like, sure. I'll just drag my copy out that I bought like back in 2015. I played, and I was just like, oh, this is weird, but strangely kind of fun. It's weird. Yeah, it's different. Would I talk about this? Yeah, let's talk about the big one. So, story time. Oathbound. Folks. Complete in the box. We're talking everything. We're talking cartridge, that gigantic hint guide, scratch and sniff card, the character cards, all that stuff is in here. Everything. And I paid $15 for this. When it was going for $800 normally. Back in like 2016, I think, when I got this. Story time. So, I brought it up before. I think it was during the NES games stream. What's up, VGM Oscillo? How's it going? So, there was this Facebook group called Trade, Sell, Collect Video Games. What was it? Trade, Sell, Collect. Okay, I can't remember what it was. Trade, Sell, Collect Video Games and something. T-Scran Vigat was the abbreviation for it. And it was a raffle Facebook group. Basically, somebody wants to sell something that's really expensive normally, like a copy of Earthbound that's $800, but they don't want to pay eBay fees if they do sell it. They would go to the guy who ran that Facebook group, say, I want to put this up for sale. I want $800. So they'll probably put it up for $850, so the guy that runs the group gets his cut because he's running the thing. And then they raffle it off. They sell tickets for the game, and each ticket goes for a specific amount, and there's only so many tickets available, and when you add them all up, they equal out to the price the person is looking for. So the guy says, I want $800 for this. Okay, so what do you want to sell each ticket for? $5 each. Okay, we'll make each $5 each, and however many it takes to reach $800, that's how many tickets will be available. Once they sell out, we'll raffle it off. Someone wins, you sell them the game, we give you the money, I get my cut, we're good. So I had bought tickets for like multiple copies of this on that site. So at this point, I was pretty discouraged because I had lost. each time. So when this new one went up for sale or for raffle, it was $5 a ticket. I bought 3 tickets, so I spent $15. The only thing was I didn't notice in this fine print for the listing for it that says that when they would do the raffle, it was a live stream. The guy would stream it. The guy that was running the raffle that night would stream it. He would put everyone's name that bought tickets and however times you bought a ticket, your name would be in there multiple times. In like one of those randomizers, he would randomize it 5 times. And on the 5th time, whoever was on the top would win. The only thing was for this game, they said if you bought a ticket, you need to be in the live stream if you win. If you win and you're not in the live stream, it's going to the person who's next in line on that randomizer. So because I had lost like 2 or 3 times before for a copy of this, I was like, yeah, whatever. I completely missed that part about the live stream. The only thing was I knew the guy who was running it that night. I had talked to him back and forth a couple of times. So like I was at home and I was doing basically nothing. I think I was organizing something and I get a message on Facebook Messenger and it's like, are you in the stream for the raffle? And I was like, no. It's like, get in here right now. I'm like, why? He goes, you won the Earthbound. And I was like, what? He's like, you won it. And people are like saying, give it to the next person because the guy who won isn't here. So I jumped into the chat, like within the next 30 seconds, I was in the chat. And I was like, I'm here. And they were like, no, you weren't here when it actually got raffled. You shouldn't be able to win. And the guy was like, I don't care. He's here now where I'm giving it to him. So I paid $15 for this. Turns out the guy who was raffling it was a friend of Nintendo. And when he saw me in one of Nintendo's streams or comment on one of his videos or something like that, he was like, hey, you're the guy I sold that Earthbound to. And I was like, yeah. So I was super happy to finally get this in my collection, this big beast of a box. And the thing that pisses me off the most about this, other than the fact that it's like super expensive nowadays, is when I was going to KB Toys all the time back in the day to buy those like clearance Nintendo games and stuff like that, when this game came out, it undersold so badly, like it bombed. I remember going to that KB Toys one day, and I think it was when I was going to get a copy of, was it Bubsy O'Hare or something? There was like this barrel in the front of the register at the KB Toys, and it was completely filled. We're talking like up to my mid-chest with copies of Earthbound that didn't sell, and they were selling them for $5 a pop. And I was like, I don't want that. Nah, not interested. And I could have bought every one of them and probably sold them for a mint and never would be retired right now, living off dividends from selling copies of Earthbound on eBay. So glad that I have this in my collection. I need to sit down and play through all of the games in this series. I have all 3 of them. I need to play them in order. That's the way it works. But I'm just super glad that I did not have to pay $800 for that to get into my collection. I was ready to at one point. I was going to do a training video for a company that a buddy of mine works for. He was trying to get me a job to film, not a training video. It was they were doing like an employee retreat, and they were going to film like a video, and they wanted somebody to film it and then edit it together so they could show all the people that couldn't make it, kind of thing. And I was going to get paid like $5,000 for it because I was going to have to edit it and get someone to do the music for it and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, well, when that job happens, I'm definitely spending the money that I get on getting a copy of Earthbound. And then it fell through, and I was like, oh man. Magic Knight Ray Earth. Ooh. Yeah, that not too long after I got that copy of Earthbound, the group exploded, or imploded, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, it imploded. Turns out that there was scamming going on, and it was nuts. And some guy had like gotten into the group chat for the people that ran the group and exposed what was going on. And next thing you know, and everyone's talking about like, well, you know, are we going to get like the IRS on us because, you know, none of this stuff was taxed and stuff. It was nuts. It ended soon after, and I've never found another group like that since. So back to the regular sized boxes, we have Earth Defense Force. I picked this up not too long ago at the exchange near me. I found it in their expensive game case, and it wasn't expensive. This was like $35. And it's another horizontally scrolling shmup. This one's kind of cool. You hear Earth Defense Force, I immediately think of EDF on like the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, where it's like Starship Troopers, where you're like a guy on foot shooting giant bugs and shit. No, this is a shmup. It's just like every other shmup, but it's decent. I like it a lot. I think it's better than like Darius Twin and Biometal. Next up, we have Earthworm Jim. I had this game back in the day, absolutely loved it. The quirky, weird sense of humor of it all just really like hit me in my field, not my field, but like it just really it appealed to me in a really great way, and I really became attached to it, and I could not stop playing it. It is a fantastic like run and gun platformer, and it's like got a weird ass sense of humor. Like you're a worm, like a worm that's in like a giant person suit, like a super suit that lets you run around and actually do things. It is so cool. I mean, if you launch a cow at the beginning of the game, I think it comes back later in the game and lands on somebody. it's just really silly and funny. I like it a lot. And the music is really catchy too. Earthworm Jim. Yeah, I need to get Earthworm Jim 2. I would love to get it on the Saturn. Next up we have, so I was talking about the original game in this series on the NES. It's called Solstice. It's an isometric puzzle platformer, and it's really great. It has great music, and I love the way the game works. Well, there was a sequel called Equinox that came out for the Super Nintendo, and I tried to get this back in the day, and like nobody had it for rent, and nobody had it for sale. Like I never saw a copy of this for sale ever. And then, but I knew it existed because I saw it in magazines. I saw a review of it in a magazine. I think it was a GamePro or an EGM or something like that. And I was like, I really need to have that in my life. I love Solstice and could never find it. So ended up getting this at the Midwest Gaming Classic in 2018 from that table that was run by those people from the Atari Age forum who were selling the collection of one of their friends from the forum that had died. And the guy who died, his wife, wanted to sell off the collection to pay for their daughter's college. And when I found that out, I was like, I'll buy as many games as I can afford here because I want to help you out. And this was one of them. And you can see it is still isometric, but there is actually like an overworld now. You're not just in these underworld dungeons doing the platforming stuff. There's actually like overworld stuff and bosses to fight and shit. It's crazy. Still not as good as the original, though. Got you at the right time. Yeah, it just like the time that came out, it just really appealed to me. Like it's the sense of humor of it, the color palette, like the way it was just super colorful and weird and quirky. It just really just did it for me at the time. Classic. Bought this at Kmart. I think it was one of the first games I bought for my Super Nintendo, and that is F-Zero. Classic racing game. And the funny thing is, the box doesn't have any actual pictures of gameplay on it. It's a comic book. What? Way to sell your new console, guys, by showing off the really cool Mode 7 graphics you have in your game. That would probably be a system seller. So, yeah, racing game behind the car. And like I said, it's Mode 7 all over the place. When you turn, the level turns. Your car stays stationary, but the level turns. It is really cool to see in action. The music is really catchy and classic. The cars are really cool looking and all that. I really, really like it. It is super fun. And we've had multiple sequels to that over the years. And they get crazier and crazier and crazier with each one. Then we have Fighter's History, which is a ripoff of Street Fighter 2. And I think there was actually like a cease and desist that was given to Data East at some point because this is so close to Street Fighter 2. You can really see it on the back. It is like just teetering on plagiarism. But it's not bad. It's actually pretty fun. I like it a lot. I picked this up dirt cheap when I first got back into collecting. I think I got this for like $15 off of eBay. So I wasn't going to pass it up. I love fighting games. They're my jam. So had to get that, and plus the price was right. Played it when Nintendo was touring colleges. It was super strange looking demo card. Oh boy, we got the heavy hitters right now. Yes, we do. So I talk about these RPGs and how I never have any time to play them. Doesn't mean back in the day I wasn't playing them. I really was not into RPGs back when the NES was a thing. I watched, I think it was because like my dad was always playing Ultima on his Atari computer at home. And like watching somebody else play something like that is not exciting, like at all. And watching my dad play those games for years, like he would replay them and I'd be like, you have other games for this console. You can play those, instead of playing Ultima 3 again for like the 8th time. So like they really weren't exciting looking. I never really played any. I watched a friend of mine play through a good chunk of Final Fantasy, and I was like, I don't really feel like I need to own this game anytime soon. I had gotten a copy of Dragon Warrior with my subscription to Nintendo Power, and I played that. But that was another one where my dad found out that I had like a game that was an RPG that was better than what he had on his computer, and all of a sudden he's like, I'm playing this Nintendo every day now. So like I just did not feel I could never get into them. I just thought that they were boring and like the same. It's always roaming up an overworld, get into a fight, and that's it. Going to some dungeons maybe. And then I played Final Fantasy 2, which is actually Final Fantasy 4. So my buddy Gary, that I was always talking about during the NES streams, had gotten a copy of this. And this was before I had gotten my NES or Super Nintendo. I think I was still paying mine off in layaway. So I went over to his house and he was like, "Oh, I got Final Fantasy 2. You wanna see what it's like?" And I was like, "Not really," because I watched you play the first game and I was not really having that either. So he's like, "Well, it's the game I've got. That's what I'm gonna play. You can either stick around and watch or you can go home." And I was like, "Oh, whatever. I'll stick around." And I was watching him play this, and the music got me, the characters got me, like just the way it was kind of like playing a movie at times. The way it worked. It was just like really cool. And when I got my Super Nintendo, this was one of the first games I got. And I loved it. I played through it and I absolutely loved it. Could not tell you for the life of me how it plays out now because I have not beaten it since. And the last time I beat this was in 1991 or 2, maybe 2. So, yeah. But I do consider this probably my favorite or my second favorite RPG of all time because I got so into this, the Cecil shit and all that. I mean, I loved it. The airships and everything. I could not get enough of it. I played through this like every day. Coming from school, what's homework? Final Fantasy 2 is life, kind of thing. It was crazy. I absolutely love this game. It is fantastic. But because I got so heavily into that when Part 3 came out, which was actually Part 6 in Japan, I really didn't give a shit for some reason. I just was like, yeah, I've got my Final Fantasy 2. I'm still not that heavy into RPGs back then. Part 2 was the only one that I really made time for. I really wasn't interested in 3 at all. I watched my friend Charlie play a little bit of this. I went to his place one day, and he was playing it. I think he was at the final boss, and I was just like, oh, this is kind of cool. I still don't want a copy of it. Whatever. So, didn't own a copy of this ever until getting back into collecting in 2013. And one year I got my tax return, and I was like, now's the time. Prices are still rising on these. Might as well get it while you can. So I got 2 and 3 at the same time. And from what I understand, this one is even better, but I have never played it. I need to set aside time and play through 1, 2, 3, 4, all of them, basically. I've played a little bit of the first one. I beat the first one on the Game Boy Advance back in the day. I played a little bit of 2. I have not played 3. I've beaten 4. I have never played 5. I've never really played 6. I've played 7 a little bit. I beat the first disc. I never went any further than that. I played a little bit of 8. Played 9 a lot. Played a little bit of 10. Played a lot of 11. Played a bit of 12. None of 13. None of 14. None of 15. And all the spin-offs, I've never played any of those either. So I need to definitely set aside time to start playing through all these damn RPGs, man. But this one, both of these actually, are super heavy because of the shit that comes with them. This one especially. This one is heavier. What is in it that could make it so heavy? You always have to save the world. Yeah, I know, right? Double Dragon 5. I talked about Double Dragon 5 earlier, Retro Coop. Yeah, that is not good. Yeah, it comes with the cartridge, which I know is heavy because of the battery in it. But there's a Final Fantasy 3 poster, and there's a map, and the thick-ass manual on the other side. God damn. Is this Buck Rogers for the Genesis? That is a thick-ass manual. God damn. Now the only problem is getting this back together. Don't fold over like that. Thank you. Eventually, I will play through it. I need to play through 2 again. That was like when I kept on saying in 2020 that 2020 was going to be the year of RPGs for me, but I was going to play nothing but RPGs and knock a bunch of them off my my backlog, and I didn't play one. I played a little bit of Kingdom Hearts, and then that killed it for me. You have a hard time staying awake playing RPGs these days. Final Fantasy 2. Hey, how's it going? Utsusemi? 2-4 is my fave. Yeah, 2-4 is my fave as well. Yeah, the full-size board. Yeah, they're both like, Jesus. But then there's this. There's Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. This was the Japanese thought that we would not dig don't forget, RPGs were not a ton of them out at the time, like in the NES. There was not a ton of RPGs like there were on the Super Nintendo. So I guess it was before Final Fantasy 2 came out. Square was like, we're going to test the waters a little bit. We'll make an RPG that Americans can play. You know, it's warming them up for all the stuff that we have coming in the pipeline. So they made this Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, which is basically an RPG on training wheels. It's like a very beginner RPG. But it doesn't mean it's bad. It has all the same tropes as your standard Final Fantasy game. It's just not overly difficult. And I almost beat this once. I've come pretty close. But I love it. The music in it is fantastic. The music in all these games, I mean, I've heard music from 3, even though I've never actually played it. I've actually listened to the soundtrack because I actually owned a physical copy of it at one point. The music of Final Fantasy 2 is amazing. I love the Chocobo Island music. Yeah, the soundtrack is awesome. I actually have tracks of this on my my little thumb drive that I use to play music in my car. The Ice Cave music, I think, is fantastic. So when I first bought this back into my collection back in like 2015 or 16 or whatever it was when I got it, I played it for like 3 days straight, and I was like, this is a lot of fun. I don't know what the hell, Square was like, oh, we can't handle an RPG. This is just as fun as any of the other ones, although it is just really easy. And this got released in Japan as, was a Final Fantasy USA or something? Like they're trying to mock us. Those Americans just cannot play RPGs. They just can't do it. Mysidia time music, yeah. The Final Fantasy Mystic Quest battle scenes remind you of Earthbound? Yeah, a little bit. Thank you, Retro Coop. This is only part 1 of 3. You'll see some awesome stuff coming up. Next, we have Final Fight, the OG. This is one of the first games I had for my Super Nintendo. The thing was, I could not find this one anywhere. The Kmart I worked at didn't have it. I ended up getting this at a grocery store called Omni. In the middle of the grocery store, they had like a small little electronics section. They had some music. They had some movies. They had a lot of video games, but they sold like earphones and shit like that back in like the early 90s. It was weird. And I remember I went there with my mother one day, and I was just like, oh, they got video games. Final Fight. So I had never played the arcade game of this, so I was not aware that there was a character missing from the game. Guy, of the 3 characters, there's Cody, there's Hager, and there's Guy. Guy was completely missing because memory requirements. Give it a couple years and they could have figured it out, guys. But the thing about this, it is so slow. Didn't care back in the day. Beat 'em ups like this where the characters were so huge. It was a godsend that you had stuff like this that looked and played fine. But now I play this and it's like, wow, this is like playing a beat 'em up in molasses. It is so damn slow and hard that to the point where I've never really made any effort to go and try to find the other 2 games in the franchise. So that might be the only one that I have. Although I have played the arcade version on the Capcom Beat 'em Up collection for the PlayStation 4. So I have beaten that one too. And Guy is my favorite character. Eventually, they released a remake of that on the Super Nintendo that was only available, I think, at Blockbuster called Final Fight Guy, that I think took Cody out and put Guy in instead. But then the Sega CD version actually had all 3 characters in it. Okay. Yeah, I played the shit out of it back in the day. I didn't care that it was slow. There was nothing else to compare it to at the time. So I didn't really care. But now I play and it's like, wow, this sucks. This like legit sucks. Here's a repro the only Super Nintendo repro I got from Time Walk Games. I talked about them a lot in the NES collection streams. I picked up a copy of The Goonies for the NES from them. I picked up a copy of Sweet Home. There's plenty more games I wanted to buy. Basically, everything they had on their website I wanted to buy. And then I ordered Sweet Home and this because they were having a sale. And then the moment these showed up at my house, they shut down. And I could not get anything else from them ever again. And that game is The Fireman. I saw some video about this on YouTube, and I thought it looked really cool. It's like a variation of like a top-down. It looks like Legend of Zelda, the way it's like top-down, but it's like a variation of a run and gun. You're basically playing a fireman. There's a building that's on fire. You play as like this heavy-set, mustached fireman who has two modes of attack. You can actually full-on hose flames, and that's for the big fires. And then you also have a fire extinguisher that like has like a small range, and that's for taking out the smaller fires. But you have like a little tag-along lackey with you who has like a fire axe. And as you're fighting the flames in this place, he'll like swat at him with the axe and put him out. But there's boss fights and stuff like that. Like I'm in this one big, like in the boiler room, and all of a sudden this giant flame attacks me, and you have to like figure out the pattern to defeat it. It's weird. There's a strange concept for an action game, but it works. It's by Human, who I think does the Fire Pro Wrestling games, and it's fantastic. When it showed up, I popped it in my Super Nintendo, and I played the shit out of it. I even did like an unboxing for this on my channel way back when I first got it. This comes with a lot of stuff. Let's see if it's still here, though. I did this for both of the NES games that I had picked up from Time Walk Games, and it was kind of still there. You'll see what I'm talking about when I get there. The thing with Time Walk, everything was complete. Box, which is a little bit thicker cardstock, came with a poster and a manual, but they have a tendency. Yep, it's still there a little bit. It's faint, but it's still there. For some reason, they would use donor carts for their reproductions instead of like buying cases from someplace. They would actually take like an existing Super Nintendo game, take the guts out, and put their own thing in there and resell it, which I'm not cool with. Because it might have been a copy of Super Mario World, but someone out there might have wanted that copy of Super Mario World. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why they weren't buying empty cases and chipboards and stuff like that, but they repainted the cartridges before they would send them to you. So it's just a slightly darker color of gray, which makes no sense to me. And it still has the faint smell of spray paint on it, which is weird. That I bought this in 2014, and it still smells a little bit like spray paint. F the Fireman, that game, man. I love it. It is so good. Oh, you're talking the ignition factor? I might have that game too. I love the Fireman. I played the crap out of it. I kind of want to go and play it right now because it's so much fun. This one I'm not that big on. I got this at that table, that Atari Age table at the Midwest Gaming Classic in 2018, and that is Firepower 2000. I remember hearing how great this game was back in the day when it first came out. Like, oh my god, it's a great variation of shmup. It's like vertically scrolling, and you have like a helicopter and a tank you can play as. It's awesome. And I was like, okay, cool. And Sunsoft, I love Sunsoft. They make great games. This was on the downslide, though. Like, the NES was their primo time. But after that, everything kind of went, because I bought this expecting it to be awesome. And when I played it, I'm like, this is not good. So yeah, like I said, it's a top or vertically scrolling shmup, and you can either play as a helicopter or a tank. It's not fun. It's like so hard, and there's just so much shit going on screen that it's hard to keep track of everything, and it's just not fun. Yeah, the 2000s, and this came out like in 1993. So I'm not really a big fan of that one, but I got it for a great price, so I can't complain. I bought this game just so I could talk about it in a Top 3 Tuesday episode that I was doing when I was doing them alongside Jason from Corpse Flood Gaming, because I was going to talk about it in one of the videos because I always wanted to own a copy of it, and I never really did. And that is Goof Troop. It's a puzzler. I was going to say platform puzzle, but there's no platforming. It's a top-down game that looks like the original Legend of Zelda, and you're playing as Goofy or his son. What is it? Jeff or something? Max. His son's name is Max. I never watched the cartoon or the movie that this is based on. But yeah, it's a Capcom game, and Capcom and the Disney license, man, they were just a match made in heaven. They are so cool. And yeah, this is unlike any of the other games that they have made Disney-wise, and it's just I almost call it a platform puzzler again. It's a puzzler where you're kicking blocks around and stuff like that, trying to unlock doors and whatnot. It is super fun. It's almost like Adventures of Lolo a little bit. I liked it a lot. I played the shit out of it when I bought it a few years back. And then the last game I'm going to talk about here tonight, Max. Yeah, Ignition Factor. That's the one that Nintendo was always talking about. Is the last game I'm going to talk about is Gradius 3. Okay, so wasn't really big into shmups back in the day. I would buy them here and there because it was breaking up the platformers and the run and guns and the hack and slashes and the beat 'em ups I was playing. And every once in a while I'd be like, I want to play something different. I'll get a shmup. And then I'd play it for like 3 days and be like, yeah, I don't need to play that ever again. And then I would do it again like a year later with a different game. This was the first one that I bought for my Super Nintendo. I bought this, and then this was the second one. I bought Super R-Type, and then I bought this. I really like Super R-Type. This one, while graphically awesome compared to Super R-Type, I mean, like, the shit that happens in this game is absolutely nuts sometimes. There is so much freaking slowdown in this game, it's almost unplayable now. Back in the day, didn't really bother me all that much. Now I play it, and it's like, no. No. All the no. Nope squared. Looks great, and it is not fun to play because of the slowdown. I do own Gradius 3 and 4 on the PlayStation 2, and that's the way to play that game. There ain't no slowdown on that one. But, yep. Super Life Force, never happened. Yeah, I would have loved a sequel. Well, there is Salamander 2. I think it's on that Saturn thing I have. Yeah, there is a second game in that franchise, dude. I might be talking about it on my Saturn stream. Oh! You breathe. Okay, that's it for tonight. That's the first third plus the Super Famicom games in my collection. Yeah, there is a Saturn from Japan. It's a collection. I think it's like the Salamander. I'll spoilerize it for you right now just because you're you, and I like you. Where you is? That's not it. There it is. The Salamander Deluxe Pack Plus. It has Salamander, the arcade version, Life Force, and Salamander 2. So, there you go. Don't say I never gave you nothing. Dunkadoo ball. Oh, is that Justin? Oh, Cardboard Zero. Yep, I'm going to be visiting the Minnesota pretty soon. I'll be in my bunk. So what's happening, brah? That's it for tonight. That's the first, like I said, the first third of my Super Nintendo collection. There's a lot more to go. A lot more cool shit to talk about. Might have something to do with a banjo player in the next stream. Just saying. There will be a new short tomorrow. I don't remember which one it is. I have like 3 or 4 of them already ready to go. But yeah, there'll be a new short tomorrow, probably around noon or 1 Central. And I will be back next week with part 2 of this series of Super Nintendo streams. Friday short day. Whoop, whoop! So I will talk to you all later. Thank you for hanging out with me and chit-chatting with me and keeping me company and all that. It's really awesome that everyone comes and hangs out. I love it. That's why I do these streams, man. It's just a chit-chat with all the peeps. So I will talk to you all later. Chris, the old ass retro gamer, out. Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe. We'll see you next week. Whoop whoop. Oh, hey, Justin. I'm bringing a stack of really shitty movies with to Minnesota, so prepare yourself. I have spoken. To quote Willy Wonka, the suspense is terrible. I hope it'll last.